good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on one of the key topics in today's industry, responsible consumerism. So we'll be taking a holistic approach from looking at production all the way to consumption with Michael Ingemann from Nordic Harvest and Omar Shihab from Restaurant BOCA. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. I'm very excited to have you both here. Before we deep dive into this topic, I know I didn't do you any justice with the introduction. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
All right, I'll start with thanking you for having me here. It's I think my sixth GRIF event, so it's really great to be back in Dubai. You can't tell, but I'm actually wearing several hats. One of them is as a partner in Think Hospitality, where we is a strategic advisory firm with for the hospitality sector. I'm also a partner and chairman in a group of better kebab restaurants in England. And then I'm chairman of Nordic Harvest, which is the biggest vertical farm business, industrial scale in Northern Europe.
Honestly, it is very vibrant. I think it's very exciting. Omar, what about you?
My name is Omar Shihab. This is my first GRIF. I was born here. I was born and raised in Dubai, UAE. So I've been here just over 25 years. I'm joking. It's not true.
Are you sure?
I've recently been assigned with an advisory role within the UAE restaurant group. I also started the restaurant BOCA with my family in 2014 on the pillars of sustainability. So sound commercial foundations, conservation, and community. And I hope I'll get a chance to share some of the learnings that we've had on this long journey.
I see you brought your notebook there, so there's a lot to say, I'm sure.
A lot of data.
And like we said, responsible consumerism, there's different angles, different aspects to consider. So let's set the stage here a little bit. What is responsible consumerism to you? Shall we start with Michael?
I think it's really a redefinition of what quality is when we go out and choose what to buy, to eat and drink. And it is really a sense of what we eat, what we drink, has an impact beyond what it just does to ourselves. So it's the how it's being produced and how it is the impact on the climate and the environment, but also on the living conditions of those who produce it, or the living conditions of the animals that we eat. So I don't think it's something that you will go out and choose necessarily just because it has an impact, but it becomes a higher hygiene factor in terms of what we want to eat.
What about you?
I think for me, it's taking a deeper dive and a look at one's self, and in our case, the restaurant. What we did is we took a deeper look at our operation, our value chain, at everything that we represent. We're in the industry of consumption. So we ourselves consume a lot of ingredients, and I'm not just talking about food and beverage. There's a whole plethora and a myriad of items that a restaurant buys. So we produce waste ourselves, and we're also asking our guests to come and consume with us. So when you know something like this, you reach a conviction, I think, that is almost like a bell that you cannot unring. And with this was perhaps one of the beginning factors that led us to what we're doing today. So it's really for us is considering ourselves as an important factor in this larger food system, from growers and farmers to transportation, down to retail and restaurants. And perhaps in a country like the UAE, restaurants make up a large portion of that factor. And we all know the numbers. We know that food is responsible for 1/3 of global emissions, 1/3 of all food is wasted and never consumed. But we as hospitality and people from hospitality and food and beverage, we represent more than 10% of global GDP. So we employ 1 in every 10 people. So this does not only mean that we have a great responsibility, but perhaps an opportunity to make a big difference.
So on that note then, Omar, how is your business influencing responsible consumerism? What are you doing in terms of actions in order to become more sustainable?
It really started from the very beginning. Because we were building a homegrown concept, we wanted to dedicate parts of our menu to local ingredients. Now, what does that mean? We live here in the desert. We started looking at the 1,400 kilometers of coastline that we have, overlooking 2 seas. There is an abundance of fish and seafood that we have access to. Now, obviously, it is warm water fish and seafood, so approaching it will take a slightly different approach altogether. So we started with that, and we started with what was at the time at the Ministry of Fisheries green list. So these are smaller fish variety, perhaps variety that is not usually consumed in households or in restaurants. And from that point onwards, we started looking inland. We started looking at organic, traditional, and agri-tech producers. Really, the aim was to create something that represented the local market. We also identify ourselves. We today, chefs and restaurants, we have a platform. We have a voice, so we can influence trends and we can influence people. Immediately after that, and 2 years into our business, we started realizing the waste that we produce, as I was saying earlier. And from that point onwards, we started proactively approaching that, not just identifying the different waste that we're producing, but also taking measurement and weight, recording data. Because I think that's one of the most important elements when approaching this topic, is to really measure. So it was really, from the beginning, taking a look at ourselves as an important player or important contributor to the food system.
Yeah, you can't really say to another person, you have to change without changing yourself first.
Absolutely.
So look in the mirror before you actually make that change further.
Yes.
All right. Well, I just wanted to bring this also now to Michael. Similar question, but also focusing in terms of considering Nordic Harvest. It's a hydroponic vertical industrial farm. And we had a brief conversation about this before, where you also spoke about how people perceived your business. And one of those points was environmentalists. So can you share a little bit about that?
I don't know, I mean, vertical farming is still a relatively new technology, but I don't know how much you know about them, but it's grown indoors in shells up to 10, 15 meters with only artificial light. And often you'll pare down the lighting so there are only red and blue lights. So often what you see pictures there will be people in white lab coats.
Thriller movie.
Yes, and seeing these strange colors. And you say, well, how can we eat this? And there's a disconnect between what we're told is really organic and nice and healthy, and then you see this indoor looks very sort of Frankenfood, sort of scientific and almost
synthetic, I guess, as well.
Synthetic and dangerous.
Yeah.
What we found there, we were quite worried about this, was actually that people are very willing to look beyond that and actually see the benefits. And some of the benefits are that you can bring high quality produce to a consumer and have it grown right next door to them. So you don't have to transport it through across the world. It's also with much lower water consumption, and because you can optimize the whole sort of growth journey for a plant, they will come out tasting as good as they can. So what we've seen here is that by going in there, producing and offering a better product to people, very few people have actually had any kind of resistance against it, except, as you said, the sort of the old school, I would almost call them, environmentalists who see the terroir, this French concept of you have to know exactly where a plant has been growing. You have to recognize the soil and the season and the craftsmanship of the farmer. We take that away, and we say, well, we can actually have the same kind of quality year round, and we can replicate that in all the settings that where we have these production units. And actually, we see that as a way to democratize quality. You can go out there, and you don't have to go to a 50 best restaurant to buy the sort of exceptional produce. You can actually buy it in the supermarket or in a food service. So we think we've come a long way.
would you consider it unfair compared to local farmers where you have this product? And I don't know how many have tried hydroponically greens, but the first time I tried it, the flavor was just overwhelming. It was honestly brilliant. You take a bite and you take your time to chew and to absorb those flavors compared to going to a local farm. And in most cases, depending on the soil, the weather, the water, everything that's being used, can also influence that flavor and sometimes minimize that flavor.
Yeah. Depends on the farm. It depends on the product and the location. I think that I don't think that vertical farming will replace every kind of farming we see now, but it will be an addition to the food system, and I think that it'll be an important food system, or an important change as we transition away from how we produce food today.
Yeah. Honestly, I would still opt for both. I love farms. I love to pick my own greens as well. But I'm also very excited with the idea of vertical farming. And I believe there was also a little station outside in the hallway where you can have a look. So it's brilliant. Okay, now responsible consumerism. Everybody wants to do it. There's so many things you can do, but there are, of course, challenges. So tell us a little bit about the challenges that you have faced. In this case, Omar, as a restaurant, what do you go through? What have you realized after so many years trying to work on sustainable practices?
Of course, us in the restaurant and the food and beverage industry overall, we're already busy people. We have 1,001 things to worry about on a daily basis. So the first challenge was to really take ourselves a little bit out of that equation for brief moments of time to research. Not just research, obviously, from our desks, but actually going out onto the field. And this is something that I've taken upon myself. Every season I would go out, I would hear of a new farm that just has been established, or of someone is growing something new in our country. So doing that research obviously takes a lot of time. The second point is definitely logistics and getting a lot of these products that we want through the value chain, and we're not always successful at that. And this is perhaps something that sustainability is all about, is finding the right balance. It's not just about getting the local product into the restaurant, but also getting it in a way that is sustainable. Perhaps growing it is not the best idea to have it here in our country. Perhaps it consumes way too much water, way too much electricity. And if I have to drive every week 150 kilometers to get that product, then it doesn't make sense at all. Perhaps it doesn't make sense for my business. And that's the third C in sustainability, which is the commercial aspect. Because if we're unable to sustain our restaurants, our businesses, then there's no point. You can't get to the other two C's, to conservation and community. So that is definitely a challenge. I think first and foremost, us as restaurants and people in hospitality, people come to us expecting that. People are parting their ways with their hard-earned money to come and dine in a comfortable, relaxed environment, to have a delicious meal, to be served properly. I think we must not forget that. Now, if we're able to run our operations in the background, responsible sourcing, if we're able to manage our waste proactively while still maintaining that and managing a profitable business, I think that's the real challenge.
It's a good point, and in this case, I'm sure that you've also gone through a challenge, but to maybe direct it a little bit more here. Okay, you've gone through a lot of research. You're part of the boards on several different companies. Think hospitality as well. Coming from a restaurant operation perspective, let's now put a label on it for a second. Supplier and operator. If you could give each other one tip or one piece of advice, one recommendation that you would change in this current state as we are, what would it be?
This is such an exciting time we're living in, because there's so many opportunities and so many new developments coming on. And I think that if I look at it from the hospitality businesses side, I think I would definitely look into some of the new technologies that are new services coming in to reinvent the supply chain. Fresh on Table, that is, I think, presenting here in the corner, is one of those that link restaurants and hospitality businesses and food service with the manufacturers. And I think that is the difficult part. That is linking those and making sure that it works consistently and with quality, and you can trust the supply chain. And I think that is definitely important to get that right.
So finding the right partnership.
Finding the right partnership and going out there and seeing what's happening, because I think it's one of these parts of the business system that is really under quick evolvement right now.
Yeah. Omar, what do you think? What would you do as an operator? What would you tell your suppliers?
A lot of the suppliers, a lot of the consultants out there are trying to push in a specific product that is perhaps falls under sustainability. And sustainability has a myriad of aspects that are very interconnected. So what I would like perhaps from suppliers is to understand the ecosystem that we operate in, understand perhaps a little bit about our business and what makes sense. The fact that it's labeled green or sustainable does not necessarily mean that it's something that will jump on right away. So I would like them to sort of leave their silos, if you want to say, and try to understand the overall objective of what we're trying to do. And this is something that we've taken on since day one. We've taken data as a driver for everything that we're doing, whether it's in our waste or later on, what we've done is conduct a carbon emissions calculation for our business so that we can have a much more forceful and focused approach. We now know, we know today where we need to hit and what we need to target. And trying to sell me perhaps something that is made out of bamboo and just because it's labeled green or sustainable is not necessarily something that that will prioritize.
So I guess that would be one of your top tips as well to other businesses. So in consideration of the restaurants and bars that are attending this event or in general, what would you suggest in this case? Where should they start?
I think this topic is on the minds of everyone right now, whether it's a consumer or suppliers, restaurants. Everyone wants to participate. Perhaps some people are doing something about it, but I'm not sure that we're all doing it correctly. And my first approach, my first advice is to look inwards into your business. This is something very specific and very personal to your own operations. And perhaps it is the best indicator of how well you know your own operations and how well you know your own value chain. So I think the low-hanging fruit, something immediate that anyone can make is to measure. And you can start with waste, something that is extremely easy to do, even on a basic level. It requires no investment in terms of cash, but it requires a little bit of effort, a little bit of time, taking a look at what you're producing and prioritizing what you want to do, what you want to hit.
Yeah. Michael, what would be your top tip?
Well, that would actually have been my top tip.
That would have been your top tip?
Sorry.
We need more tips.
No, but you're saying that what gets measured gets done, right? So unless you know how you're doing, it's very hard to influence that. But I think the other thing I would say is make sure that you involve your staff and your customers. I think that especially now in this time of age, where we have trouble keeping people and retaining talent, this is one of the topics that are often on the minds of especially the younger demographics, also among the employees. And I think that also your guests, they want to know, how are you doing? What are you doing? Even if you're just starting out and getting going on the journey.
That's beautiful. And actually, that brings me to my last point. And I guess we have only 45 seconds, so it'll be very quick. How do we deliver the message to the people? Ultimately, we said responsible consumerism labels, they are there. People want to see it, but how important is it? And what else should we be saying?
I think the most important thing here is to be authentic and be not try to fool anyone.
Yeah. Well said. Omar?
One of my favorite journalists, Juliet Kinsman, says, and she talks about the art of gentle proselytizing. So approaching things, taking care of your own self and being responsible in your own domain. And then if someone wants to understand that, then you're ready to talk about everything that you're doing.
That's wonderful. The rest will follow. You do it, and then it becomes a norm.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.